Hello, I'm PJ Bishop. Welcome to my channel and the ongoing series with the Oakland A's. Opening day is here, so let's go over our pitching staff. Um, and see what we have going forward for this year. Everyone is pretty much scouted high or very high, so it should be accurate readings on most of these fellas. Let's take a look at our starting rotation. This is the bread and butter of any pitching staff. As they see the most innings, they face the most batters, so you expect them to be the driving force for wins or losses. Our first and number one pitcher, and I believe it's the second year in a row, is J.P. Sears, 29 years old. Nothing special about him as far as his overall is concerned. He's got below average stuff. He's got above average movement and above average control. And he looks to possess a plus fastball, a plus slider, and an average changeup. So he is a pretty much an average guy. And of course, if you look at his stats, they end up being average. Last season for us, he had a 4.55 ERA. The year before, he had a 4.54 ERA. Nearly identical innings, really nearly identical stat lines. So he is the epitome of what an average person looks like, and kind of what Oakland Athletics, the Oakland A's are. And it looks like his spring training, for the most part, was going well until his last start, where he gave up 4 earned runs to bump his ERA up to 4.91. But spring training, small sample size. You face so many different weird batters. Your lineups probably aren't the same. The fielding isn't the same. So it's hard to tell what's going on. It's early. Guys are rusty. But he looks like he's going to probably be just average as he was last year. So nothing spectacular here. Our number 2 pitcher is Adrian Martinez. He's 28 years old. Again, another one of those guys where there's nothing special about him, but he's got below average stuff. He's got average movement, but he's got plus control. He's a good control guy. He shouldn't be walking too many batters. That should be something that he's keeping down. How was he last year? Last year for us, struggled when it came to the ERA department. Started off strong, actually. For most of the year, he was carrying in a ERA in the 3s, but then just I can't remember if it was in July or August, he just kind of started falling apart. I don't know if it was too many innings. As you can see, he's maybe 161 innings was a lot for him, so he kind of hit that wall. Whatever it was, he just started really struggling. Can't really have that again this year. Let's move on to our number 3 pitcher, and that is the Rule 5 pick, Tobias Myers. He is a 26-year-old, straight-up rookie, has never played in the major, so he'll be making his debut in our third game, so he'll be up against Cleveland. I don't know if I'm excited to have him. I'm happy to have him. He was better when I drafted him, but again, TCR, maybe scouting, whatever it is, it always does worse. He's average across the board and everything, stuff, movement, control. He's got a decent pitch mix with, nothing below average. I think he should be able to hold his own over the year. We'll find out if he does or not. It really doesn't cost me much. If he ends up being way worse than expected, I could just send him right back to Milwaukee. No harm, no foul. Because I don't think we actually get punished financially. I think in real life you have to send him back like $250,000. I can't remember what it is exactly, but you do have to send the money. He was so last year at Nashville AAA, so it's a little concerning, but he's a little older now. Hopefully he'll do a little better. Our number 4 guy is Kyle Muller. He is a 27-year-old, kind of recovered last year after a horrendous start. He's got average stuff, still kind of developing, but I don't know if he'll reach it or not. Projected to have above average, but currently he has average movement, below average control. But he's got 4 pitches that are above average or better, so he's got the pitch mix to be a decent starter even late into innings, because his individual pitches are good enough to carry him. It's just a matter of, does he figure it out? Because whatever it is, he struggled last year and then he turned it on, and he was actually pretty fine towards the end of the year. Hopefully he can do that again. If we can get the guy that was playing for us in September, that would really bode well for us. And our last starter is Freddie Tarnok. I think I'm saying that correctly. 26 years old. I think he got hurt last year so early, so not too much data on him, at least for us. He's got average stuff, average movement, below average control. But he's got a good 4-pitch mix, really carried by his nearly plus fastball, as all the other pitchers are projected to be above average. As you can see, last year played in just 2.1 innings before suffering an injury and was out for the entire season. So we didn't get to see much of him at all. It was quite a disappointing year to lose a guy so early, especially when they're young and they're developing. It just stinks because it hurts their development. So that's the starting rotation. It is nothing special. That's why I kind of wish we would have been able to sneak in at Clayton Kershaw. Even though he's 36 and he's on a decline, he still would have been our best pitcher by a mile. So instead we have these turd bags, honestly, as our starters. They're not nothing great about them, but hopefully as a whole they can if they can just hold up, I'll be happy. Let's take a look at our bullpen, which I think is more suited for the role. A lot of our pitchers have good. If you look at our stuff, there's a lot of guys here in the blue when it comes to stuff, and that's really good. But also low here in control. So our closer, back to being closer again, once again, is Mason Miller, the 26-year-old. Last year he was a closer, lost his spot, but this year he's back at it again. And what a spring training he's had. So far, no earned runs given up. I wonder if he's given up any runs at all. So he's having a really solid spring training. But again, he's a really good pitcher. He's got nearly elite stuff, perfect rate stuff, above average average movement, still kind of improving there. If he would drop his changeup, he would be a much better pitcher. Stick to the fastball, slider, and cutter, or somehow just get better at the changeup. Last year, I was a little disappointed that he ended up with a 4.63 ERA. I thought he should have had better. Because he was performing well for most of the year. But again, he's just one of those guys where he just fell off toward the end and then kind of maintained that flatline average ERA. I know he's rated as an average, but his stuff is so good. So I'm hoping this year he's a little better and keeps the closing spot job from start to finish. Our setup man and backup closer is Fernando Cruz. If you remember, we got him from Cincinnati last year in a trade for this very exact purpose. I wanted a solid guy that I got in a trade that's better than what I have in my system, and he is. Still holding up at his age. He's 35. He's got arbitration this year, too. So we don't even have to pay him that much money. But again, he's got plus 70 stuff, 50 movement. He's got 3 solid pitches. It's like he's struggling a little bit here in spring training. I guess the Chicago White Sox game really hurt there, because he went from 0 ERA to 11.57, but slowly been working it back down. And I believe last year he had a really good year for us. Yeah, for me, he had a 2.95 ERA. Really didn't play too much because he got hurt. Missed a big chunk during the summer months. So hopefully he stays healthy and provides us the relief that I expected. Because Michael Kelly in this very same role, just seemed to be a run giving away machine. He was like Oprah in the 90s, just giving away, you get a run and you get a run. Everybody gets a run. I was like, Michael, we're not trying to give them runs. Anyway, Michael Kelly, speaking of the devil, is a middle reliever and also the backup setup. So he is an option still late in the games. Hopefully he'll do better. He's 32 years old, but he's got plus stuff, average movement, below average control. He's got a really large pitch mix, which I wish he would drop. Like, drop your changeup, get rid of your curveball, just stick to your fastball, slider, and cutter, and you'd be much better. And I think you'd be giving up way less runs. But he's had a hot spring training, so hopefully he can maintain that form. And again, another guy that's given up 0 runs. Last year, average, 4.34 ERA. But he was just giving up too many runs in really key situations. Because a lot of my losses were due to him. He was part of the issue. Couldn't keep a save, blowing saves. Another middle reliever is Gerardo Reyes. He is 31 years old. The stuff isn't as potent as the other guys, but he's a little better overall, or better in other departments as far as like movement. Because he's got above average stuff, above average movement, below average control. So at least the control is still fairly decent. And he's got a really dangerous fastball slider combo. He does mix in a above average sinker. I wish he would stay away from that. I wonder if the game tells him to pitch that way, way less. Because if he sticks to his fastball and slider, he's going to be one of the best relievers, middle relievers in baseball. Because he hits triple digits, and you just got to get rid of that sinker or throw it less. But again, looks like he's another guy that has a hot spring training. 0 runs given up. Last year was really good for us at 3.1 ERA in 50 innings. He was one of those midsummer call-ups from AAA because he was just playing well there. As you can see, he actually ended up playing better for me at the majors than he did down in AAA. Hopefully we avoid this guy here. As you can see, terrible. That's what I'm hoping. Our last middle reliever is Francisco Perez. We try to avoid high leverage with him, avoid high leverage situations, and he's also a mop-up guy. And that's 27-year-old Francisco Perez. The reason why I try to avoid high leverage with him is his control is not just below average, but kind of well below average, which means he's a liability with men on bases. I don't want to put him in with a man on first and second, and then he ends up walking 2 guys. The worst thing is walking in a run when you're not supposed to be giving up any runs at all, or you have no room for, you're trying to nurse a 2-1 lead. You can't afford free runs like that. But aside from that, he looks like he's still developing as well. It looks like he could hit plus stuff above, or plus movement. The control is going to always be his issue. But again, one of those guys that if he just drops the changeup, that changeup is below average. Why throw it? You could stick to a fastball slider and be one of the best guys in the entire league, but you want to throw a below average changeup, and you're not even developing it well. It's 35. Just let it go. Why are you so obsessed with this changeup? And I'm so surprised that there's not an option to tell my pitcher, stop throwing that. That pitch is no good. But that's not quite yet an option. So we stick with what we have. But it does look good. Looks like he's had a pretty good spring training. Last 5 starts, he's slowly getting it back down to 1.5. So definitely good form heading into the season. But even last year for us, he was really good with a 3.23 ERA. That was in 55 innings. Very similar to his AAA line, and much improved from the year before. I don't know if he'll improve much more than what he is now because his walking problem, as you can see, 6.8 per nine will always be an issue. But he has the stuff to get it done at a high level if the walks aren't an issue. That will be the only thing that holds him back. And I have unusual with 3 long relievers. Usually, if anything, teams will go with two long relievers. You're not going to carry 3, but they happen to be good pitchers. They happen to be good bullpen pitchers that have stamina. So it's just the way it is. It's not like I purposely did that. Joe Boyle, he's a long relief guy, also avoiding high leverage. All these guys avoid high leverage. That's really the reason why they're not starters. All these guys aren't starters because they don't have good enough control. I just can't leave them in for 5. I can't count on 5 or 6 good innings because A, they don't last that long because they have such terrible control. They end up walking most of the batters that not most, but a lot of the batters they face. So they end up filling up those counts or taking 10 pitches per batter. So before you know it, they got 60 pitches just through 3 innings. And you're like, holy moly, 3 innings, 60 pitches? You're about done in 4 or 5 innings. One rough inning, they're done. But they're excellent bullpen guys. Starting with Joe Boyle, 25 years old, still a fairly young kid. Pretty decent spring training. Looks like he got his form somewhat back after a rough start. You can always tell from where the ERA is. It was 4.91 just 5 plays or 5 outings ago. He's got it down to 2.7, which is really good. Again, he's one of those guys where the stuff is nearly perfect, the movement is above average or is plus. It's just that control. That control is just haunting him. And he's also one of those guys that continues throwing a pitch that just isn't up to par to his fastball and curveball together. I guess if his changeup could hit plus, it will definitely be good. He's not like those other guys where at least it's in the 30s. So it is above average pitch. It's still a really good pitch, nearly a plus pitch if he can develop it. That will make him more dangerous. I wish he could work on his control, but at 25, he is pretty much what he is. He is not going to change. I think he's always going to have problems with it. He's going to have his high velocity, low control issues for his entire career. But I'll try to live with it, especially last year. Although it's not his fault, the ERA did get inflated to 5.26. I blame that mostly on the fact that I did have him start a few games. As you can see, he ended up starting 4 games. I don't think any of them, maybe one was okay. The rest were just disasters. And then if you remember, Stevie Emanuels is a long reliever, also an opener. Only guy I have set for an opener. He was one of those late call-ups in September just to see if I could get anything good out of him. And now he's looking like he's got himself a full-time gig in the bullpen. So he's not a starter, which I'm sure is what you would want. But he's playing, and he's got and in my opinion, anybody in the bullpen has a significant role. I like to keep my arms fresh. I also make sure they at least pitch once a week, a minimum of once a week. I try to get them on at least 5 or 6 day rotations. Sometimes it goes up to 7, but usually I try to get them in within a week. But it ends up happening. Usually, it ends up happening naturally. They'll end up playing anyway because either A, guys are tired, or they're called up for their specific role anyway. So it does end up working out. He's got plus stuff. It could still improve. He's got average movement, and that could still improve, but his control is pretty bad. That's what's holding him back. Decent 3-pitch mix, nothing exciting. Looks like he's had quite a struggles in his spring training here. And he was doing real well for us last year in the few starts that he had. But again, he was performing so well that I knew he was going to have a disastrous start. And his last, I think 2 or 3 were pretty bad, which I expected because he was sporting an ERA way better than what he should have. And then our last pitcher is Luis Medina. He's also a mop-up guy, so nothing wrong with having a guy with lots of stamina eating up innings. Now he looks pretty decent if you look at his ratings. His stuff he's 25 years old, so it could still improve, but he's got average stuff, above average movement. Again, it's not control that's keeping him down, but he's got a really good fastball. He's got a possible plus slider. He's got a above average curveball. The changeup, of course, is not that great. It's below average. And it looks like it won't probably improve. So he is a decent looking pitcher. And he's had a strong spring training. It looks like no runs given up. After last year in his debut for us, struggled. Very small sample size, but he also struggled in AAA as well. So struggled in both. We'll find out if he learned anything over the summer, if he got better, because he's got pretty darn good velocity. So he does fit the bullpen, I think, better than he does as a starter. And he might find himself a nice long home there if he can improve. Although he is one of those first men kind of out. He's just hanging there by the edge. So at this point, it's going to depend. His on-field performance is going to have to be what keeps him going. So that is it. That is our pitching staff. It is no one's great, but I think there's potential here because they all have really good stuff. Like, most of my guys have good stuff. What's holding them back is either a really bad pitch for some odd reason that they just can't seem to let go of, or they just have a horrendous control, like 35, like Joe Boyle at 35. That's just terrible control. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we'll go over the lineup.